Make a wish.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Lost Bits, the series where we explore the unused, altered, and unseen content in gaming. We are once again diving back into Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, which, much like Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, is proving to be an absolute goldmine of unused and unseen content. In this video, we'll be focusing on several changes that were made to the second chapter for its release, as well as taking a look at several out-of-bounds secrets that are normally never seen. So with all that said, huggy wuggy that like button, it's time to hop back down the Playtime Co rabbit hole and find some more Lost Bits. So to kick things off for this video, let's fire on through a few changes that were made to Chapter 2 here compared to what was shown in the teaser trailers leading up to its release. Now first, one of the biggest changes that I noticed when going back to the trailer is that originally, in the musical memory minigame section of the chapter, instead of Bunzo Bunny being lowered down as time ticks away, the trailer shows that Daisy here was going to be the main enemy instead. Honestly, I do think that Bunzo with his symbols was the better choice, but hey, seeing this flower drop down would have been pretty unsettling too. Other changes can be seen in the game station hub area with the train, as it seemingly looks unfinished in the trailer, as it lacks many of the details seen in the final, like missing the signs for all the sub areas, as well as the whole platform where you take the steps up to reach the console with all the levers, which is also missing in this trailer. Oh, and in the trailer, the train doesn't have the green hand scanner here yet either. For the Whack-A-Huggy minigame, it looks like originally the mini-huggies might have also been able to appear from tunnels in the ceiling. The way you obtain the green hand for the grab pack looks different, and then probably the biggest character change can be seen here with PJ Pug-A-Pillar, where originally he was all pillar and no pug. I do think this original strictly caterpillar design is creepier, but the PJ design we got overall is much more memorable. Although it doesn't seem like the changes seen here are as drastic as what we saw with FNAF Security Breach, at least in terms of gameplay, I think it's still really cool to see just how much was changed during the few months between this trailer and the actual release of the chapter. And now for the second part of this video, let's zip the camera out of bounds in Chapter 2 here and check out some things found normally hidden out of view. Now, I'll be mostly looking through the prototype build version of this chapter, since although there it makes the game not look as pretty, I was able to do this, which makes it way easier to see things out of bounds, where normally, without proper lighting, it's almost impossible to see any details. So with that said, let's pop out of bounds and check some stuff out. Now, of course, there's stuff like being able to go past the blockage at the start of the chapter to try and go back to Chapter 1 to see that there's just nothing there anymore, or that there's nothing actually behind most of the doors in the facility here, but I want to focus mostly in this video on actual objects and such found out of bounds. So on that note, first up, in the room we first get to see Poppy in this chapter, she's found just chilling outside of the walls here. Now, in my previous video covering the prototype build, I mentioned how the cardboard cutout of Huggy that's seen in the final version in this room wasn't added in yet in the prototype version. But it turns out that actually this cutout is found in the prototype, only it's way off on the other side of the map, close to the ending section of this chapter. No idea why this ended up being all the way over here, but yeah, it sure is there alright. In my video on the prototype build, I also mentioned how the door to Elliot Ludwig's office was different in the prototype. Well, once again, it turns out that the fancier door that's seen in the final version is found hiding just below the floor here. I guess the developers were intending on putting it in at this point, but might not have implemented all of its functionality yet. Also, while we're still in the starting area for this chapter, found off in the distance is this small and empty, untextured room. At first I thought this was just a random empty box, but after making a quick comparison, this actually appears to be an early version of the intro power room where you meet Poppy. Why this unfinished and untextured room is still left in here is anyone's guess. Then next, after the cutscene where Mommy introduces herself to the player is done, outside of the boundaries here, not only can Poppy be seen constantly replaying her animations that are used while she's grabbed, but on the other opposite side of this hallway, there's also a model of Mommy constantly just replaying her animation of grabbing the player's right red hand. I think it's really strange that instead of deloading these assets, the developers just moved them off to the sides out of view instead, and this is actually something we'll see a lot of going forward. And surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, depending on how you look at it, this isn't like something they just did in the prototype build either, as these models like this are pretty much all found this way in the final build as well. Anyways, next, not far from this mommy is another mommy here in which she's grabbing a small Huggy Wuggy. Now this actually isn't an animation that's seen in the game, but rather this appears to be the animation that was used for the teaser trailer for this chapter. They certainly did make it look good for the trailer, but what we didn't see there is that instead of it just being a model of her arm and hand, her entire body model is used, and for the animation, they pretty much just moved her entire torso while in a T-pose to animate the arm. It looks incredibly bizarre, but you ain't seen nothing yet, we're just getting started. Now in the game station area, first we got this second train found above the room that I mentioned in my prototype video. Now after some review, this actually appears to be the train model that was used in the teaser for this chapter, as we can see that the window is the same and it lacks the green hand scanner thing. But interestingly, the train below that is used in this prototype build only has 3 total train cars instead of 4. Then, while that train is above this hub room, below the floor we can also see an untextured, what appears to be unfinished version of one of the archway things for the stairs. And yeah, once again we can see the unfinished version just shoved off to the side of the final one. There will be more on this room and the train when we get to the end section of this chapter, but for now, let's move on to musical memory, where we get our first taste of some unseen text found just out of bounds. In this room, under the floors, some text can be seen, and this appears to mimic the words that are seen on the screens telling you the order of buttons to press for this minigame. So I'm guessing this was used as a placeholder for the screens until proper graphics were made. Furthermore, when you complete this minigame, you get to see an otherwise unused message simply saying, "Good job, you win." Then also in this area, found behind one of the walls, is another text graphic, and this one appears to be an indicator of which difficulty level you are currently on. This starts at 0 and then goes up as you progress through the game until round 5. For both of these text boxes, if you leave this area and then later revisit them, they will default to just saying text. Yep, you sure are text. Now next up is this rejected toys storage room where just under the floors, some cutouts of various characters can be seen, as well as these blocks spelling out Huggy's name. We got 2 cutouts of Huggy, one of BoogieBot, one of Cat B, as well as one of Brawn the dinosaur. I know I remember seeing the 2 of Huggy in Chapter 1, but I don't think I've seen them anywhere in Chapter 2. And extra interestingly, only the cutouts of Brawn and Cat B are double-sided, while the rest only have textures on one side, leaving the other side, and even the edges, untextured. Also in this room, not really hidden away, but I saw this box with a post-it note with a phone number to call a Patty, and I haven't really seen anyone cover this yet. Now unfortunately, although I was hoping this would lead to some cool ARG or secret, calling this number just results in an automated fella telling you that it's out of service.
Dialed is not in service. If you feel you've received this message in error, please hang up and try your call again later. Message CO18656.
Regardless, it's really strange that the developers went out of their way to make a texture for this, and the number just doesn't lead to anything. But I guess thankfully it's not someone's actual phone number. Next up we have this track area after the Whack-a-Huggy section. I teased this a little bit in my previous videos, but found out of bounds here are not 1, but 2 unseen and unused models of Kissy Missy. Now at first I thought at least one of these were just the model that's used, stored out of view, but no, if we look closer with some proper lighting, we can see that these models both appear to actually use Huggy Wuggy's blue texture as a base under the pink fur, as opposed to the model that is used having a proper pink base. Furthermore, the model that is used, even with lighting, always appears like a silhouette, and it always starts out with this spiky teeth version that's never seen. As soon as you get close enough, the model instantly snaps to the smiley version that helps you out. I speculate that with this other door close by, this Kissy Missy under the floor here was probably used as a placeholder in an earlier build of this chapter. And this one here, found out of bounds by Barry here, to me suggests that maybe there would have been some other interaction planned with Kissy Missy later on in the segment that was scrapped. Although I do wish we got to see more of her in Chapter 2, I think it's quite obvious that she'll have a much bigger role in the upcoming chapters. One character that probably won't have a bigger role in the future is unfortunately Barry over here. If you ever wondered what happens to Barry after he sends it into the abyss, well, he ends up just floating in the void here, still fully animated. Don't worry, buddy, your sacrifice won't be in vain. Now moving on to the statue section, once again we can find some out-of-bounds text. For starters, just under the map near the start, there's some floating text just saying, "Waiting for player." At first I thought this would change once I progress in the area, but nope, it just stays the same. Then at the end of the statue's hallway, found off to the side out of bounds are not one but two instances of text thanking the player for playing. At first I thought this might have been some leftover from the credits or something, but thinking back to the other text message earlier, I think it's more likely that these were once used perhaps for beta testers that would play this section, and then this text would show up for them at the end. Then also in this area, found under the first chunk of foam panels is a large white ramp thing, as well as this untextured slide, which appears to be an early version of this slide above that's once again just moved off out of view. It would be really cool if there was a secret path down here that you could find if you sank down long enough in the foam, kind of like in A Hat in Time, but I'm pretty sure this is just another instance of moving an unfinished object off to the side. And in case you're wondering, yeah, this slide and all of this unseen text is also seen in the final release of Chapter 2. And now getting to the ending section of this chapter, normally here, if you're within Mommy's line of sight when she finishes counting down from 10, you'll get bamboozled. But if we go down and then take the camera back up, we can see not only her instantly transform from her counting down animation to her just running in place for a bit, but she then just disappears. Okay? Now also just outside this room is this unused red button. No idea why it's here, but I'm assuming it had something to do with these doors. Then next, as we move along, we can see Mommy's arm sticking out of the wall here in the prototype build. And if we move the camera into the wall, we can not only see her full model in a T-pose, but we can also see another hand grabbing her own foot. Now this other hand here is the one that's later seen destroying this corridor, but why the full model is here too is, yeah, I don't know. Next up is this furnace puzzle room, and here there are a few things found outside of the room that I briefly touched on in my video covering the prototype version. Outside we can see a reference to a second key as well as another mold, suggesting that there might have been more planned to this puzzle than what was ultimately implemented. Furthermore, another key mold can actually be found floating in the void further away from this room. It appears to be a mold for a key that looks like the triangular one you get in Chapter 1, so it's likely that this might have been the second key and mold that's referenced in the out-of-bounds text. Then also near this unused key mold are the starting and ending power source units used for the power puzzles, as well as there's this yellow floating text saying power reroute. So perhaps this was just used by the developers to test the power rerouting for the puzzles. And while we're talking about stuff found further off in the void, there's also this whole chunk here that looks to be some sort of walkway. I don't recall seeing this anywhere else in this chapter, and some parts of it are still untextured, but just based on the way it looks, I'd assume this was meant for the ending section area. Anyways, back to the furnace room. Interestingly, not only are these text references still found in the final release version, but the old placeholder gear system that's seen in the prototype build is, you guessed it, just moved off to the side out of bounds here. Furthermore, also outside of this room is another what seems to be early version of the generator thing. This one also has a different type of door beside it, so maybe this was some sort of in-between version between the prototype and the final release one. Alright, and now finally for the mommy chase section, here we got probably the most stuff found hiding out of bounds. For starters, there's this large red placeholder slab which indicates it's supposed to represent 15 meters just floating above here. In this area you can't reach when running away from mommy, we can see that this texture of PJ here is completely messed up out of view. There's this red text out of bounds demanding to not delete something, but what that something is isn't really clear. Oh, and did I mention there are like 8 models of Mommy found hiding out of bounds too? There's everything from one here creepily dashing above the furnace room, one of her just running along, one of her hanging out all mangled, and yeah, there's also this. Yeah, during the chase section in the sewer area, you can see Mommy's hands trying to get you, and I guess this is how they did it. Once again, instead of just using a hand and arm model, the entire Mommy model is used, and that results in this being found just out of view. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this is definitely some nightmare material. Also in this area are several additional floating bits of text that appear to be a guide of sorts for how the segment was going to play out. We got messages including, Mommy runs past, slightly faster than you, arm blocks path, arm spazzing, and more. Obviously, this being the ending section of this chapter, it shouldn't be surprising that it wasn't as cleaned up as some of the others, but the fact that pretty much all of this is still there in the final version of this chapter is almost kind of funny to me. Anyways, next is the grinder section. In my video covering the prototype build, I've already mentioned that no trace of the prototype hand thing is seen there, but in the final version here, we can get a much nicer look at it behind the door, as well as when it drags Mommy's remains away. Such a creepy looking thing. And finally now, we're at the finale of the chapter where we once again return to the Game Station Hub area. Now another thing I mentioned in the prototype video is that initially you would have taken some stairs back down to the main area instead of the slide as seen in the final. Well, in the final version, yep, you probably guessed it, the originally implemented stairs seen in the prototype are actually still here, just moved off to the side, never to be seen by 99% of players. Then next up, just outside the train in the prototype version, strangely a copy of the player's grab pack can be seen floating here. Then, although the train looks to be running more or less normal when looking at it from a distance in the final release, in the prototype version, yeah, it looks like they didn't really get around to animating it fully yet, as the second and third carts just steer parallel to the first. And yeah, you get this. This truly is a marvel of engineering. Oh, and also the green hand scanner thing appears like it isn't attached to the train yet in the prototype, so it kinda just floats in place after the train leaves. And now, last up for this video, let's have a look at how the ending section is handled. Now interestingly, I thought the train actually moves through the large track area, and although it does move through the track at first, after a while the train actually stops, and then the entire track ends up moving instead. It's honestly really goofy to watch the train stay in place while everything else moves around it, and if we take the camera back to the hub area, you just get to see this massive model move on through. Then we can also see how the track appears to go on forever if you don't hit the brakes. Basically, after a certain point, the track will just keep rewinding on itself forever, like so. And then, once you actually do hit the brakes, the train will progress down the spiraling section here before the ending crash animation occurs. And in the final version, we also get to see the sign for the play care just appear outside of the train window. But apart from that, unfortunately, there's no other indication of whose footsteps are heard approaching the crash at the end of the chapter. Anyways, that'll be it for this part, and I hope you enjoyed. Next, and probably last for this chapter, we'll be diving into a bunch of unused graphics, models, and sounds that were left out, so make sure you're subscribed to find your way back for it when it's posted. While you're here, check out some of my other Lost Bits videos, and as always, thank you all so much for popping by, and I will see you in a bit.